Welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Pastor Jonty, and on this podcast, we love to spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life, and culture intersect. Today on the podcast, we're going back in time to, at time that this comes out, about a month ago, we held a live event. And this week, we are going to be hearing the recording from that live event. So if you weren't there, this is your opportunity to catch up on everything that happened at that event. A little bit of context before we dive in. This event was called FUTUREPROOF Faith. So we had 4 guests along, which you'll meet very shortly, some of which you may be familiar with on this podcast, and spoke to them individually about what was important to them when they first came to faith in their faith communities, and then looked forward to where are we heading in the future and what can we do to try and future-proof our faith. That's just about all the context I think I need to give you. We'll be jumping in after the introduction that Rev Ness and I did at the show straight into our first guest, and we'll be leaving the recording just before we did an audience Q&A. We might release the Q&A as a separate bonus episode later on, but that's what we'll be doing this week on the show. I will remind you of this again at the end of the podcast, but if you want to be involved in one of these events going forward, another one of these will be happening at the end of this year, at the end of 2024. Date TBA, we've narrowed it down to a couple of dates, but as soon as that is locked in, we'll let you know. And we'll get those details out to you as soon as possible. But without further ado, let's get straight into it, into today's episode of the podcast. I'll see you on the other side.
Peter has been a reverend for 57 years. And during being a reverend in that time, he became... Hang on, I'm still going, brother.
That might make me very old.
You're bloody old. You really are. You just had a significant birthday. 35 years he's been a psychologist, and he's been married for 59 years, poor woman. He's got 2 sons, 4 grandkids, and a cat. And Peter founded the Pastoral Counselling Institute, which later which was located out at UTC at Parramatta, and then got absorbed into Uniting, which is now Genesis Counselling. Have I done Genesis Psychology? So he's a father of the church, ladies and gentlemen, and we are so honoured to have you here tonight with us, Peter, because your stories are epic. Now, the other thing Peter did ask me to say, I'm not being my normal rude self when I say this, but Peter said he is a neurodiverse, brilliant person. I put the brilliant. I did.
A neurodiverse person.
Yeah, brilliant. I put in the brilliant, so sucked in. Yes, absolutely. And he comes with all his awesomeness to the panel tonight. We're very grateful to have you and your life experience, Peter. So, are you ready, brother?
I'm ready.
Okay, the question is, what was important and valuable to you in your faith community when you were young, and what kept you doing the Jesus thing?
Right, okay. Well, I didn't go to church when I was young. I came from an atheist family with a dour Scottish grandmother who thought you should go to church and be good. I didn't want to be good. But I was dragged to a youth convention, Bessie and Holiness Mission. Gives you an idea how old that was ago. And on the railway station, I met this young woman, and we were attracted to each other. This is Friday night. We had a cup of tea that night, and we talked and talked and talked. And on Sunday, I said, "Would you marry me?" And she said yes, and that was 63 years ago.
Is that Brenda?
That's Brenda.
Oh my, yes!
And when I had my 80th birthday party some time ago, my youngest son, who's now 52, thanked Brenda for not killing me. That's like every part of it. We got married soon after that, not straight away, but a few years after that. And then she was a strong Salvation Army girl, and I was just into girls. Into her in particular. And so, anyway, the following Easter, they had a big convention up there. We had conventions every Easter and October long weekend. And they used to get the vans for sin. It was very conservative and fundamental in those days. And we give testimonies about not going to the movies. Ooh. Not playing cards.
Oh, that's
not smoking or drinking. And that's why Christians didn't have sex standing up in those days, because it might lead to dancing. So dancing was also evil. But the following, I've heard that before, it's an old one. So the following Easter was an event. I'm sure if his false teeth, if he had false teeth, they would come out, because he was really preaching about coming to serve Jesus and who wants to do full-time service for Jesus. So Brenda went out. So I followed her. And the prayer counsellor said, "And why have you come forward?" Very earnestly. "Why have you come forward, young man?" I said, "What with her?" And that was it. So then I felt this kind of urge to be into leadership ministry. Like it just sounded like the most fantastic thing to do. So I went to the Congregational College and said, "I want to become a minister." And they said, "Well, you haven't finished high school." Because I failed every year of primary school, failed every year of high school, repeated every year of high school, left when I was 18, no intermediate certificate, what do they call it now, the school certificate, nothing. So I was just working rubbish jobs. So I had to go back to the night school, it's a long story, night school, leaving certificate at night school, university at night school, theology at night school, run a church part-time, back into night school for my master's degree, back into night school for the doctorate. At 42 I became Dr. Pell. But with a neurodiverse brain, that's really, really hard. So you need a mentor like a great wife. What's kept me in the church?
yes.
Blimey. More things have tried to push me on the kid, but what's kept me in is really good people. And what I've learned as I get into my 80s is, if you hang on to the faith, just the words of Jesus and the life of Jesus, doesn't matter what else happens, that'll do me. So I'm at the stage of my life where I've got babe theology. So if I can love today and be gracious today and try again tomorrow, that'll do, Pete, that'll do.
We're going to pick up more of that story as we continue on, but I'm going to move through these fairly quickly. Our second guest is well known to people who come to a lot of here. Born in the 70s, married to Maren, who's here as well, with 3 adult kids, been hanging around faith and the church all his life, discovered the reality of Jesus through some spectacularly answered prayers. That sounds something I'd love to pick up later at some point as well. Became a minister because he wanted to make a difference in people's lives and the community, and loves big ideas, gaming, eating good meals with good friends, and his favourite day of the year is Christmas Eve. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Phil Swain. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
So tell us, same question. What was it like first entering a faith community, and what were the important things that kept you there?
Half of it was in the bio. I grew up in the church. My parents were always church people. And so it just seemed to be what you did. It was part of the experience I had. It was good. But as I said, about 14, there was some things that happened, spectacularly answered prayers, which I couldn't deny. It was sort of like the stories that I'd been reading about suddenly became real. And part of that was this realisation that God actually knew who I was, could hear what I prayed, and could interact in my life. And that was just huge for me. And really from that point on, it was a bit like, well, I can't turn away from this now. It's that addictiveness that you're talking about. I can't turn away from this now. But if you fast forward a little bit, the next big thing that really gave me that stickiness in the church was the church who invested in me. You know, I moved to the country by that stage, and I had a little church who just gave me every opportunity. I'll be preaching when I was 17. You know, they put me on church council when I was 16, you know, things like that, and just sort of going,
What were they thinking, Phil?
I know. I've read my old sermons. They were not good. But it was a bit like going, well, you know, here's some opportunities for you. And it gave me this insight into something deep within me, that I'm a person who loves to make a difference. And I want to be influential in communities that I'm a part of and in people's lives. And just, you know, that's why, you know, I feel called to ministry. So it's a place where I can do that. But it's church and faith. I feel like I'm hitting that deep need, and I can't turn away from that. That's part of who I am. Part of what my faith is about is not only the reality of God, but also the opportunity to try and make a difference in this world.
Love that. Do you want to introduce our third guest?
Yeah, our third guest, ladies and gentlemen. During the week, this hot babe can be found having a coffee, laughing around and sharing hope and advocating in all things ministry with young people alongside the Put It Together Pulse team. Yeah. Please put your hands together for Pastor Joyce Tangi. Joyce is a fierce and passionate Tongan Australian woman. She finds passion, dialogue that promotes listening to different voices, bridging gaps and finding common understandings as we journey forward together. She loves her fam, especially being a godmommy, dancing the night away, and mostly finds her passion in being a self-confessed cheerleader. Go, Joyce. She loves cheering others on and encouraging them to find the things that makes their heart sing. Thank you for joining us tonight, Joyce.
Hello, Leigh. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are so excited. You are just like joy in a pink top. Just ooze bubble of loveliness, you do.
Yes.
Just ooze the spirit, sister. Can I ask you the big $1 million question?
Yeah.
Can you tell us your story about what was important and valuable to you in your faith community when you were a little one? And what kept you there? What was it?
Yes. Well, thanks for having me, Philly Hope. Hope I'll be in one of your reels. What started for me, church was the first place that I found I was loved and supported outside my family. So my first memories of church for me is Sunday school. That's the first place. And the same Sunday school kids was at my local school, and the same kids was from school was at the local rugby, the local netball, and also the Girl Guides. And I'm a Girl Guide. Shout out to all the Girl Guides out there. But it was the first place truly that I felt loved. And one of the sacred things about it is when I was younger, my mom used to come into school and like have all my church friends there, like all in one class. And we used to like do all the things, like learn more about God. And I didn't realize that my mom was the SRE teacher. I had just thought that we were just gathering as friends, like the same friends that I had on the weekend was the same friends I was having like an hour with at school. And then when I realized my mom was I was like, oh, so this is actually another church. So all of that, so I've been blessed to, my friends were the same friends that were in, the moms and dads were in the choir with my parents inside, and then we were the kids outside playing around. But for me, I think the moment the mountaintop experiences like NCYC and Aurora was the places that I knew that like God is real deal. And I think it was NCYC, Gold Coast, I'm not too sure the year, but we had started in December, carrying on to the first week of January, and on the 31st to the 1st at midnight night, we were coming up to 12 o'clock, and there was a slight breeze in the Gold Coast, and I just shut my eyes, coming to midnight, I was like, Lord, this is it for me. And 12 o'clock hit, fireworks, it's church camp, so no kissing and stuff with all the boys. But at the same time, it was a moment for me to realise that this ministry was endless. So it's been a packed journey with all the challenges and the tensions, but there has been so much love in it in between. So yeah, loving the space.
Beautiful story.
Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah, thank you.
And our fourth and final guest tonight is the youth worker at Willoughby Uniting Church. They grew up in the Uniting Church and now aims to find where creativity and worship intersect. And something they haven't put in their bio that I'm going to add is they're probably the biggest fan on earth of the TV show Supernatural. So if you have any Supernatural questions, ladies and gentlemen, Somerset Drake.
I don't know if I enjoyed that. That's all right.
That was genuine. Welcome. Same question for you. Where did your faith community start and what's kept you?
Well, like a couple of people in the panel, I grew up in this very building, Tamara Uniting Church, and was kind of nurtured by the church in that way. I like to refer to myself jokingly as a bit of a Uniting Church nepo baby, because I have two very strong figures in my life that are big people in the church that I feel like got to nurture my faith, but also the community that I was in. They dropped me kind of the perfect concoction of people that was able to continue to give me opportunities. And also, I'm a bit of a church nerd, so I, for as long as I can remember, attended ordinations and commissioning ceremonies as little me, and I think Mum has pretty heavy recollections of me in like leggings and a t-shirt at someone's very serious commissioning assembly, like right in the front row, wanting to see everything, because I've always been interested in what church is, and just it's such a great community anyway. And what kept me is that, in particular Tamara, but kind of the church experience, is that the transitional gaps in life were kind of filled for me in that way. So during high school, there was a great community that I could go to and have an awesome net of people that always supported me, mentors and leaders alike, as well as then going into young adulthood and still having that strong community, because Joyce and I were chatting earlier about this space and about how a lot of us have grown up here at Taramara and still hang out here at Taramara, despite being here forever and ever and ever and not really getting sick of each other. So it's good to know that there's a community of people that love each other so much, because God's with all of us and we're all together, which is awesome.
Thanks, Simon. And I should say now, we will have 15-20 minutes at the end of this from audience Q&A. So if you have any questions for S9 or any of our guests, hang on to them and we'll go around and get as many as we can. I guess one reflection for me, hearing across 4 different generational voices, it sounds to me like the people in the community has been a constant theme for all of you. Would I be correct in pointing that out as a really important thing for all of you in your faith communities? And what has that evolved for you over time?
It can be, but if you live long enough, the community will let you down. That's just being in. So what I've found in more recent times is if I can hang on to the story of Jesus and the scripture. There was a time, I was joking at dinner time, there was a time in my journey as a minister where if you mentioned Jesus or the Bible, you're a fundamentalist nutter. So somebody, if you mentioned anything radical like social action or something, that was fine. But if you mentioned Jesus too often, you had a problem. But I've learned as I got older that if I look to the community for my support and encouragement, one day I'll be badly burned. And then I'm in trouble because I'm getting hurt by the family that won't speak to me or whatever they do. But if I can hang on to the essence of what the gospel's about, and then an amazing story of Jesus and how Jesus lived, if I can just hang on to that, then when I'm in trouble with my community, I can see them through the eyes of Jesus. I can say, well, how would Jesus be hearing them now? So that gets me back into my curiosity. I wonder why they're not doing the right. I wonder why this is happening rather than what they think's going on. And so it's really fixing. Today's sermon when I went to church, in a Pentecostal church where I attend at the moment, was on Romans 6, and it was all about the holiness of God and about make your body a living sacrifice to God. Oh, yes, that's what we've got to get back to. So I can hang on to that. Then when I'm in a broken community, we can work together. But if I look to the community, I'm in trouble. Sometimes it's great, but it doesn't always work.
It's a really good response. Does anybody else want to speak to that?
I love what I just heard because while you asked that question, I know that I stand on shoulders of giants that had to do the fighting for me to say the Holy Spirit slayed in my soul. I can say that freely because people before me had to do the fighting, and just to hear that out loud is super crazy. So yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that? Next question. Certainly for me, and I think universally probably for all of us, one of the big questions as we look forward into the future, whether it's in our faith community specifically or just community in general, is around this question of inclusivity. Because we look at the history of the church, and a lot of the time our faith communities haven't been inclusive. A lot of the time, in good faith, we have tried to be more inclusive, but sometimes that hasn't worked. So I guess open question for all of you is, where do you see either places now that are, how are we doing inclusivity better now, and then where are the gaps that we can fill better as we go into the future? It's a big question, I know. There's probably a million answers that you can give.
From an inclusive standpoint, from personal experience, queer voices and queer spaces are very important to bring us to be together and to feel as though everyone is being included. And as a queer person who gets the privilege of being in positions in the church that are higher than volunteers and slightly higher than leadership, ensuring that those queer voices are included and ensuring that those spaces are there is also really important. So especially, we're just finishing, unfortunately, like today's the last day of Pride Month, but during Pride Month and like Mardi Gras and things like that, it is so important for us as churches to be openly speaking about queer spaces, to include those groups of people. So from an inclusivity standpoint, there are definitely spaces and people and queer voices that are happening, but there is definitely more room for improvement. And whether or not that's speaking outwardly as a church or representing queer communities on social media via your church, or utilising your church as a space to create spaces of queer community, that I personally think is a really big step that could happen in inclusivity.
Thanks.
Thank you. What about over on this couch? Any thoughts?
It's hard to make a comment because I'm straight white male that sort of fits into a model easily. But I want to say, I was a person who grew up when things probably were less inclusive, and I apologise for that. I know it was a system that was done in good faith, but it was not right. And I'm so grateful for the people who have helped us on that journey to understand more and to be gracious to people like me who have had to learn on that journey as well. I agree. I think we've still got places to go, but I'm proud of where we've got to.
Peter, thanks, Phil. Can I ask you, Peter, because you go back generationally even further because you're an old man. Love you dearly, Grandpa.
I can't bear.
Could I ask you about the word inclusivity?
To the good old days.
Yes,
Before TV and before computer.
I know, Pete.
When I went to school, they hadn't yet invented biros.
Tell me about inclusivity in the 60s and 70s.
What inclusivity?
Tell us about it.
So, there wasn't even inclusivity in the community because when I finally went to church, and I was a fairly young minister, in my early 20s, mid-20s, inclusivity meant converting you into us. That's what inclusivity meant. You're a sinner, you're outside of us. If you read my latest blog, on the blog I've talked about that. And so we're to convert you to us. So it's very colonial, white male, middle class, colonial control, da-da-da-da-da. We have the message and you're the sinner that needs it. So it wasn't that much different than when John Williams went out to the Pacific in the late 1700s for the Evangelical Revival. And when he went out as a missionary at 18 years of age in the Pacific, he was a boilermaker. So he had to go out there and do missions. So what did he take with him? If I was going out, I'd probably want a carpenter and a couple of other practical people. But no, top on his list, John Williams was a hatter. So they could make top hats for the Tomans. And a milliner, so they could make brassiers to put them on the women who were naked from the top up. That was the priority. And so there was no inclusivity. I was converting sinners to Jesus. Okay? We never mentioned that what was gay or not gay. Gay in those days was having a good time. And when I did TV for Channel 10 in 1974, I talked about church camps, and I said you can't use that word because camp was becoming a word that was, and the church, I've gone through the debates where it wasn't talked about, we didn't know it was there, to, oh my goodness, and as a psychologist, when I was trained, it was a mental illness. Okay. It was on the DSM-3 as a mental illness.
So
and I've gone right through to where we are now. Yeah.
We've come a really long way.
But you better believe it.
Yeah.
But I hear the point. We think we're a long way down the track. We are nowhere near where we need to be. And one of the weaknesses of the United Church, I don't want to get too negative, I want to be positive tonight, but we think we've got a big dose of Grover syndrome. Yeah, because I'm neurodiverse, I can never remember my own theories or the books I write. So I've got to make up stupid stories to remember what I'm talking about. Now, Grover in Sesame Street wants to get where? Oh my God.
Does he want to eat the corners?
Grover wants to get there and then teach the children the difference between here and there. So Grover runs across the room. He says, now I'm here. No, now there. Now you're here. But I want to get there. So he runs back where he was. Now I'm there. Now you're here. But I want to be there. And he runs back. Oh, now I'm there. Now you're here. So we're only ever in our faith journey where we are. Okay? You guys can't be in your 80s. You don't want to be there. Seriously. You're creeping grown. It's not, But, so you can only be where you are. And so the United Church thinks that it's there. It's liberal, it's open, it's inclusive, it's justice, it's right. And it is at times, but often not. And you only have good spiritual health when you know, as Paul said, the good I want to do, I don't do. The crappy things I don't want to do, I do. What is wrong with me? Now, when you can do that well, and I'm getting better at it, I've got pretty good about 75, you can say, I'm a bit of an old fart, I've got all this kind of crap inside me. Let's own it. And then we work from there. If the United Church would say, we're on a journey, we're getting there but not there yet, we'd be much better off. But unfortunately for people in the gay, and I've got a gay granddaughter who is alienated from the church because of some of this stuff. We've got a long way to go, but I'm hopeful.
I'm curious, Joyce, is the Uniting Church inclusive? Is the Uniting Church inclusive?
Is the Uniting Church?
No. It thinks it is, but it's not inclusive. We say we are.
No. I was literally going to say, we talk a big game, the Uniting Church, but when push comes to shove, we're not getting our hands dirty enough. And thank you so much for sharing, because I could say the church needs to be more intercultural, the church needs to do things. But if you're not engaging in those spaces that you don't belong in, and you know that you could love another person in God's family that doesn't look like you, that is not part of your circles, then what are you doing? And I think that, and that's the challenge. The Uniting Church talks a big game, but it's hard to say that we're not walking our talk. And you got to have those hard conversations for God to love and bless that action. And I was saying that in my communities, we're just learning now about pronouns. And if someone feels comfortable with pronouns, so what are you going to do about it? Do you need to equip yourself? You need to learn about it. If you want to be for myself, when I call someone my brother, sister, friend in Christ, that is a term of endearment. So please note that if I'm like, oh my gosh, my sister, I want to engage with you. I want to learn from you. I want to be your cheerleader. So what is that in my generation? What do I have to do? What does it take for me to be that support for you? And I think the Uniting Church says so much about that. We could do so much better.
The good news is we've got the language for it. It's like a structure. It's like when we were kids. Because when we were growing up, we didn't have the things we had to make our own toys. So we used to make cubby houses. Now we've got a great cubby house in the United Church. We've got a nice little structure that says inclusive, LGBTI+. The whole thing is all there. We're not doing it nearly well enough. But so what you can do is when you don't see it happening, like the way we exclude women is just amazing, and the way we elevate the ordained is something. I don't know why that's something really and truly. I mean, ordained, what the hell does it mean? And so...
It means kiss my ring.
Yeah, that's right. Or kiss my ass. So what we need to do, and this is the positive, is when it's not working, you get curious. You say, oh, that's interesting. It says at the base of union that I wonder why that. So just keep drawing people to the structure. It's there for us. It's all the ideals are there. Just we're not doing it very well. But all you got to do is say, that's interesting about women, and you keep drawing them back to what's written in the basis, which I voted on. I did not vote to be an ordained minister that could only do the sacrament and the lay person couldn't. Who the heck invented that rubbish? So we just got to keep bringing it back to what we're called to be and just keep doing it because it's all there.
And I would also say that we need to challenge more where our voices are being thrown. So not shying away from the spaces that we know probably won't receive what we're trying to say, because that's the point of progressing, is challenging and trying to move forward, rather than continuing to create an echo chamber of we are doing the right thing, we are doing this, we are there. But if we're not progressing our voice past that dome, then are we really there?
How do we do that, Summer?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. So how do we be better at that?
I do think it is, as a church community, our outreach and outfacing image is very important. Being able to, as a church, represent the ideals that we have, the beliefs that we have, to the wider community, not just to the other church communities, is really important. Standing tall as a uniting church and in what we believe and who we represent is so important for other people to see us. Because the word church is so scary for so many people, it's even scary for the mic, is because there is such a stigma around what is happening and what we talk about. But if we're not representing wholeheartedly who we are to the wider community, then do we really believe, or do we have that core belief in what we're talking about?
I think there's a big difference in, and something I've been wrestling with over the last couple of years, in kind of to what you were just saying, in groups of leadership, or those more, we'll say groups of leadership for now, making decisions amongst themselves to say we are inclusive and making decisions based on that. That's 2 or 3 steps behind people who have never been inside this building, for example, walking past and being able to go, oh, I know that if I walk into that building, I will be welcomed. I don't know what those steps are in between. I think that's part of what the journey is discovering what those things are. But that is so important, because for every church that, in all good faith, says we are inclusive and practices inclusivity, there are still people in the car park not being able to step inside because they're scared. And that's a reality that we have to reckon with.
I don't have coloured skin and I'm not LGBTIQ community, but I was an outsider. I was like the chick that in the Bible they would have stoned in the circle because she shagged too many people. I turn up at Hillsong as a big skank And I tell you what, talk about being on the outside, mate. And with a gutter mouth like mine, I was stonable. And you know the thing that they did, it was probably bullshit, but it worked. They included me and I didn't feel judged. They probably pretended. They pretended. Because I did get judged in the end. But I found Jesus and then I found a community that didn't judge me. And I've got to tell you, that is incredible. Because when you're a person on the outside of the big church walls, and we're really good at building up those kingdom walls, aren't we, to keep them out? Because we don't really want them in here. They're not like us. And they come in, if they were anything like me, they're full of shame, full of guilt, full of sin, and inside the pretty walls, they think you are all perfect. And that's bloody hard. So I think we have to be radically honest about who we really are as Christians. We're not bloody perfect. None of us. I know you all, maybe you are at Turramurra, but we're not at Uniting Heart and Soul. We're not. And I think honesty, radical truth-telling is, it's hard. It's hard to step out and be that because it means that you're vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, you are vulnerable. Is there another word, Peter? With vulnerability comes shame and all the bits, doesn't it? And that's scary. But what I've learned in my radical, honest way that I do ministry, and it's got me into all sorts of shit, as you all probably know. I get into trouble a lot. And it also leads people to know Jesus in a real, honest, vulnerable, truthful way. No bells and whistles, no bullshit, just real stuff. And I think we need more of that. And maybe they might think about coming in because we're not pretending, we're not masking. I'm so perfect. I mean,
maybe they won't think about coming in though. And that's also sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe they bring, if not Christ, the love and grace of Christ to their community. I think that I know Phil well saying this, church building full of people is ironic, but I really do think if we talk about future-proof faith, for me, a lot of that doesn't involve church walls. It involves being more Christ-like in the communities that we already are in. To change the direction of this a tiny bit, and just because I'm worried of time, we can talk about this for another hour, and I'm loving this conversation. And if you have any questions about any of this, hold on to them and we'll try and get to them. Maybe for Joyce, as member of the Pulse team, and for Summer, who's working in youth work at the moment, can you maybe, and just for a bit of context, we're looking at a church demographic that has a big gaping hole of young people. We can look at other denominations that do it a lot better. Where do you have a sense of where we need to go next to have a faith and faith communities that are not attractive to young people, but I think you used the phrase sticky faith earlier, Phil. What does sticky faith amongst young people look like today?
I think sticky faith with young people is taking the risk and loving Jesus with your whole heart. And I think young people can call out the bullshit now. So when they can't feel the Holy Spirit's presence, or they know that someone's just ticking the KPI, leading your thing, it doesn't cut it no more. And I think with young people, if you're not taking the risk in discipleship, what are we doing? And I think it's such a space where they're so intrigued. Like we want to be more inclusive. So what does that mean? And what actions do we need to take? What do we need to learn? Who do I need to talk to? They're so wanting to engage more because that's that's the society that we live in nowadays, is if I've been taught my whole life that I need to love my neighbour, and my neighbour does not look like me, does not sound like me, and God is telling me we're whole people of God, what does that look like? So I think ministry with young people now, you can define the odds of what it used to look like, what taboo, what you couldn't talk about, to a society now like. So some say, what march am I joining you for? You know, those kind of questions. If you're not asking them, and the young people can truly call out because there's no integrity in the work.
The reality of ministry with young people now is that young people probably have so much more information or access to information than literally any of us at any given moment. They are both more educated, more up to date, and just generally years ahead of all of us in the way that they think and in the way that they talk and in the way that they act. And not to use Gen Z language, but it is so tricky to kind of walk a line of not being cringe in the way that you approach how you meet their level in that way.
And you're young and cool.
And I am so old to the kids that I work with.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so tricky to work, let's say guide these children who we're trying to guide with God's love. I find that it is so much easier to meet them where they are because they know exactly what they want to think and they know exactly who they want to talk to. And meeting these children where they are has bred, for me at least, so much more information about how they think and where they're at mentally and what their viewpoints of faith are. Because, like I said, there's action and agency in the way that they are now figuring out their life. Because there's so much at their fingertips that they can do without me. So what is my role in their journey? And how can we continue to involve children in church that also includes their evolving journey? Because I don't really need to be there. But how can I involve myself? And how can I continue to evolve their faith in the way that's not on their phone? Because that is way more fun than me. Yeah. Like I said, I'm cringe to them. Yeah.
Can I segue to the social media question you want to ask? So that's a terrific point, Somerset. Jonty and I have been both reading Johann Hari's books. One of them is The Stolen Focus and the other one is The Lost Connections. And he talks about in Lost Connections that the World Health Organization stats say that we are the loneliest living society ever, and we have lost connection with people. And the way, and what we need, and what that's leading to in young people is depression and anxiety. Because we're not connected, we're connecting by scrolling, but that's not connecting with people. So if churches are a place where you've all said it's what attracted you to church and kept you sticky in the faith was connectedness to your community and to people and to Jesus, the Holy Spirit. How then can we fill that gap? Because there's definitely a need. People are lonely. There's lost connection. What can we do? What's the solution here as the church? Do we need to be more on social media or less on social media? How do we play in that space successfully well and that is wholesome and true and gives a message of hope to the next generations?
I think someone put it very well. We've got to listen. And the first thing we have to do is to give up any idea of telling you what you know. So the whole word evangelism needs to be reframed. Evangelism in the Greek means good news. So the good news is someone heard my story. So we've got to stop thinking about how can the church survive. I don't care if the church survives or not, as a building or as a structure, but it's how can the story of Jesus be listened and encapsulated into a dialogue. So the first thing I need to do is to go out and sit in my community listen to what's going on. I have nothing to say. I mean, imagine if you came into my office when I was as a treating psychologist, and you walked in and said 3 or 4 words and said, just stop there, let me tell you what's wrong with you and how I can fix you. You'd walk out. The first thing you do is listen to what the story's telling you. But we go with what we want to tell the world. But what if the world doesn't want to hear it? Huh? So we've got to go and sit in the marketplace. Jesus didn't go out and do anything. He didn't preach anything. He went out and sat, and people came to him, and he made conversation. So we've got to stop the talking and stop the United Church obsession about strategies and visions and new forms of ministry. And God knows what else. It drives me around the twist. Fresh expressions. What the hell is that about? And just sit with ordinary people and hear their stories. What do you need? They may not want to come into this building. They might want to sit in the coffee shop and talk to you, or go to your home and talk to you. Right?
So compassionate witness.
Just be the Jesus person and see what happens. We're so adolescent as a church. We are just like a lot of adolescents trying to find our way. Who am I? So I've coined this phrase we're talking about. We're now a gang. The United Church is a gang. And we've got gangs within gangs that fight each other. But we're like adolescents trying to find who we are. Let's grow up, for goodness sake.
And which gang we're in the United Church?
I don't give a stuff which one you're in or I'm in.
Which gang are you in, mate?
I don't know.
Yeah, which presbytery are you in, mate?
Just go
yeah,
and
what's the best presbytery?
just
like,
sit
you don't
and listen to the stories, and people will tell you what's going on, and the whole thing will grow from there. That's what Jesus did. And when he sent them out, he didn't have a strategy or a vision plan, or he wasn't selling buildings to fund things. He sent them out with not even a spare pair of seconds to love people and to share good news. Now, if we can keep it simple and stop mucking it up with all the drama and just love each other and call each other and listen to the story, we'll be fine. You can't future-proof your faith, guys. Sorry, it's a crappy title. Because there's no way to future-proof it.
Could be tip to the panel.
It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. You're going to get, and if you stand up and prophesy the truth, I guarantee you, come back and tell me if I'm wrong, you will get clobbered by the very people you think will be listening. So in a fractured community, and the church is a fractured community, the prophetic voices will always be heresies. And we were told in the scripture, in the last days, whatever that means, they'll want smooth and easy messages. They won't want the tough stuff. So when you stand up and speak the truth of Jesus within an institution, you're going to have struggles. But the joy is people will gather around you and say, oh, thank goodness you said that. I was wanting to say that, but I wasn't going. And the voice will rise up. I think there's amazing hope of the gospel. But look to Jesus, look to the text of the scripture and the history of Jesus' ministry, and don't look to what the church is doing. I think you guys, you young people, I'm so excited to hear tonight. Good on you.
I know, Phil, we've spoken before about this framework that you talk about with castles and marketplaces. I wonder if you could speak to that a little, because I think that fits in really nicely with this conversation.
Yeah, I'm biting my tongue because I believe in vision and I believe in strategy.
So do I.
We're just different. Before I get to that, can I just say one thing? I think there's a level of authenticness that is. You were right on before when you said people can tell if you just BSing. And if you are authentic with people, they respond to that. If you say to somebody, I'd love to have coffee with you, and don't follow that up and actually have coffee with them, that speaks volume. But if you genuinely want to have coffee with them, then have coffee with them and engage with them deeply. That's what counts. I've got a theory. I thought I read it somewhere, but I can't find it, so I'm going to start claiming it as my own.
Claim it, it's yours.
that there's some faith models of community that will work well moving forward in the future. One of them is this idea of a medieval castle, which has got very strong walls and beliefs, and if you're inside of that, you feel very safe, very part of community, and it's good, and it works really well with some people. Some people need that, and you just got to look at Sydney Anglicanism and go, they knocked that model out of the park. It is a good thing for some people. But there's a whole bunch of people that don't fit well into that model. And the idea is there has to be communities more like the medieval fair that sits in the paddock down the road, which doesn't just have one tent, but multiple tents. And it's not about us coming in and telling people what is right or wrong. I agree with you on that one. But I actually think we can be bold and declare what we think. Because we can say we have found a sense of hope in this. We have found a sense of assurance in this. And by saying that, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying this is what I found. And in this medieval fair, people will come and go, and sometimes I'll stay for a while, and sometimes they won't. But we have conversations and genuinely learn from each other. I believe that God is a God of revelation, and God continues to reveal more and more. And if we close the door too quickly, then we miss out on that continuing revelation of God. And if we are in a place where those conversations can genuinely happen, when we are listening to each other, when we are being engaged, and can I go off track just for one last moment? On Friday night at youth group, we asked the question, who influences your faith the most? And people were saying things like, their parents, their significant teachers, their peers. And that was my answer when I was 20. Do you know who influences my faith the most now? These young people here. Because they challenge me in my faith and they make me think. And I go away and go, bugger, they're right. And I actually think that's a good thing. And that's me being in the medieval fair, listening to the voices and allowing those voices to continue to influence and shape me. And when we do that, then our faith will continue to be strong and continue to be future-proof.
On that, because if you're in the fair and there's lots of tents and we're listening, and I say, and I agree, I think you might be got the impression I say, I don't proclaim anything. I just proclaim Jesus any chance I get. But after I listen first. But if we share in the tent, and I share what floats my boat in Jesus, and you share what floats your boat, and we share that together, what are we frightened of? If the Holy Spirit is present and Jesus is the revelation of God's grace and truth, won't that shine? It doesn't depend on me to convince anybody. If I share the story of the joy of Jesus in me, and you share the joy of something else in you,
strategy and vision,
whatever, and it goes back and forward, won't the Holy Spirit break forth in revelation and show, or both of us, where the truth is?
Yes.
Okay? So that's it, isn't it?
But you've got to be a grown-up to operate like that.
Well,
and we're operating in a kindy, like you said.
You've got to lose your fear.
Yeah, and
if
your
I
ego.
don't, like there used to be societies when I was a younger minister defending the Bible Society. Why do I need to defend them? Or there was heresy. We had heresy trials in my day. Who the hell cares if you're a heretic? I mean, I'm sure when I get to whatever it is with Jesus, you're going to say, there's a naughty corner for you, and because Ness is 25, 30 years younger than you, she's coming after us, right?
I'll be there with you, mate.
None of us are right, but if we love in Jesus with grace and lives are changed, like I hear just as I am without one plea, which is a really old fast hymn. You probably don't even know, do you?
No.
No. Billy Graham could say, I break into tears just as I am without one plea. I come to thee. And I'm thinking of all the crappy things I did in my life. And because I wasn't raised a Christian, I think I'm loved in Jesus. I'm loved by Jesus. And I'm a cranky old bugger, but amazingly, I can love others. I don't know how I do it, but Jesus in me loves, and my grandkids and family love me. They think I'm wonderful. I don't know why. So that's what we have to share in our tent.
So love and community. Is that the answer to the questions? Have I heard it and be bold? No bullshit. To love and to be a community, but not be gangs.
I think authenticity is such an important thing for me. I think you're dead on something when you're saying that, also with some experience in youth ministry, young people can smell bullshit a mile away. I think everyone can, but especially young people. And if we want our faith to be sticky and to influence the lives of others, it cannot be fake. And the way I think that that is confronting for me because it makes me ask the question of myself, is my faith authentic? And until we answer that question for ourselves, we can't even start to think about how we're going to go and preach the gospel to other people. We can try, and I think God works through us regardless, but we're still going to ask ourselves that question.
But I do think it is our responsibility as people who are influencing these influential little people or these children or these youth that are upcoming in the church, is that we need to remind them that we are not crazy, unattainable people, that we are there for guidance and that we are flawed and imperfect and a little bit crazy at times, but that's what makes the world go round, that we are not impossible people to become, that we can be talked to about hard things and that we won't have all the answers, but that we can discover them together, because that love and that community is going to preserve. But it also means that it breeds opportunities for those voices to be heard on bigger scales, for things to happen because of that.
I'm just wary of the time. I might just throw to all of our guests now. Are there any final thoughts that you're just dying to get out to an audience here that are on your mind about any of the things that we've talked about? If not, I'll give you another few seconds to think about it. We might start to have a bit of an audience Q&A. So I'm going to come around with a radio mic. If you've got a question, just chuck your hand up. Any final thoughts, guests? If not, no worries. No, Josie, yeah. No pressure.
No. I'm just sorry. I'm sitting in awe of what I'm hearing, because as a young person, like, you're just straight told, oh yeah, you need to voice your opinion. You need to always voice your opinion, and yet I still can't, because I feel our church was like, no, I've sat here the longest. You need to wait your turn, and yet at the same time, oh no, you have a voice, and you need to say it. Where I feel like perhaps the generation that Summer and I, we're going to sit with you while we support you. What do you need to feel your best, be your best self, say it with your chest, because the church wants to hear your wisdom. And I think in those times and spaces, like, just to have Pete here, I'm like, Pete, if you were that guy for me growing up, I honestly could say that I would have already went for I would have went down the path of what does it look like to candidate? Because it's only now that I'm grown up in my spaces where I'm like, I think I'm seeing something. Let's talk more. Let's do that. And as the United Church, we need each other to equip each other, to resource each other, to be able to make the mistakes. Because as you make mistakes, know that there's others that want to love and support you and guide you on your journey.
And being brave and to be authentic requires you to be brave. And when you are brave and you step out and be your true self, that's what people become attracted to. And then they will share their stories also. And I think that the more we can just drop the bullshit and just be real, I think the church will be in a better place.
My mic's not on. I do think I do want to add is, especially there are a lot of young people in the room, and as a young person, I want people to not be afraid to feel like that their voice can be louder than what they think it is.
Yes.
Because I think about it all the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, why am I in this panel of people who are very knowledgeable and I'm very young? And then I go, no, because I'm allowed to be here.
Yes.
And
I feel that you should be.
Yes.
thank you so much. But it's like there are so many young people who I know who have that kind of pit in their stomach that they're nervous to be talking about these things, or that they're nervous to step forward. And your voice is literally the reason we do it. The reason that we're here is for those voices and that diversity. And we want to hear you guys. And so no matter how young you are, you're meant to be heard. That's the whole point.
Well, unless anyone has any final thoughts, I just want to thank all four of our guests for being here. So if you could all put your hands
there we have it. That was the live event that we ran at the end of June. Like I said before, if you want to come along to the next one, it'll be at the end of this year. Details will be coming very soon once we have our exact date locked in. If you want to be the first to know about when these next shows are going to be, join our Facebook group down below. Also, we did an audience Q&A after the point at which this section of audio stopped, some of which we didn't get to address on the evening. So there are a bunch of questions that people had that have been fed onto us since the event. We're going to do our best to address those, all of them, as best we can, some of which are specific to the guests that we had on the show. So look forward to hopefully some future episodes with those guests in a one-on-one capacity. But if you have any further questions from that, especially if you weren't able to make it to the show and just heard that for the first time, if you have any further questions, either for Ness and I or for any of our guests, please do send them through to filthyhopepod@gmail.com or on the Facebook group or on social media. We will get to all of them as soon as we can. That just about does us. If you want to help out this podcast, we do have a Patreon. There's not much going on in terms of perks of the Patreon just yet. We're working on a few things, but if you want to contribute financially, that's one way you can do that. But a really easy way is just by telling your friends about the show. Most people that listen to Filthy Hope now discovered it through word of mouth. So if you have a friend that you think would love the show, please do tell them about it. Or you can leave a 5-star review on whatever platform it is that you listen to. It does actually really help getting the show out to new potential listeners. But that's just about it. I will see you guys next week for another episode of Filthy Hope. Have a good one.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that is in yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming, salvation undeserving. You are loved by something beyond, someone beyond understanding. Drink deep and taste the fullness of life in community.